Today's video is brought to you by my Facebook page and my Facebook group that I've created called Let's Not Talk About It with Matt Shep. It's a private Facebook group where you can go and you can discuss issues and topics that are important to you. You can share inspirational quotes or experiences and also get feedback from like-minded people around any issues that you might be facing. It's meant to be a safe space for people to talk about things that they normally don't want to talk about. Today, we're going to spill the tea on my eating disorder. Virginia's for lovers. Because I'm from Virginia. Sometimes eating disorders are broken down into the simplicity of I have binge eating disorder, which means I binge, or the simplicity of I have anorexia, which means I starve, or bulimia, which means I binge and purge. Within eating disorder recovery, there's a lot of layered experiences that go into the experience of having an eating disorder. And many times people don't just have one thing. While this video might be triggering for some, this video is for people who may have a hard time identifying with their eating disorder or identifying with the category, or may just have a hard time feeling a lot of shame about their eating disorder because they haven't had an opportunity to talk about it. And more importantly, sometimes people haven't had an opportunity to hear other people talk about what their eating disorder looks like. First thing with having binge eating disorder was I would binge. I would binge all the time. I would binge when I felt happy. I would binge when I would feel sad. Most importantly, compulsive eating and binge eating became a way for me to cope with fear, guilt, shame, stress, any negative feeling that I didn't want to feel. I would go to the fridge. As I look back and I reflected on my eating disorder, I could see that the behaviors I was engaging in were not healthy and that they were compulsive and addictive in nature. So for example, I would be eating food that I knew I didn't want to eat, and then I would go throw it away, and then I would go into the trash can and I would pull it out and I would eat it right from the trash can. In an effort to control my weight, I also would go through periods where I would chew food and then I would spit it out. Or I would compulsively start to eat food that I knew that I didn't want to eat because I was worried about the calories or the weight, and then I would spit it out because I felt guilty for eating it. And so I would eat it for the taste and then spit. And it just leaves you feeling... Another thing that I would do in order to control my weight was I would exercise bulimically. Exercise bulimically means, for me, I would binge, and then I would go and I would exercise at the gym for 3 or 4 hours a day. I remember sitting in my car, eating a loaf of bread, and then going into the gym and exercising for 2 hours. Along with the compulsive eating and the compulsive food behaviors, there's also the mental obsession. It's the mental obsession with what I look like. It's also self-obsession. It's a complete focus on myself, and it's amazing how much that self-obsession can take me away from important relationships in my life. Two of the places that I had major mental obsession when I was in the throes of my eating disorder was with the scale. I would get on the scale and off the scale, on the scale and off the scale. I would go take a shit, then go back and try to weigh myself again, just in the hopes of trying to lose 2 or 3 pounds, when the truth is 2 or 3 pounds is nothing. You can drink a jug of water and gain a pound. I would also obsessively look in the mirror, and you know what, sometimes it's still a problem for me because I still want to look a certain way and fit my clothes a certain way, and I'd be obsessed with the parts of my body I didn't like, and I would look in the mirror nonstop, and it grates on you. Having an eating disorder can suck, but not addressing that you have an eating disorder sucks even more, because you are sitting around living with the shame, the secrecy, the hiding, the constant self-obsession of whether you can control it today. Tomorrow's another day, tomorrow I'll get it. And if it's an addiction, if it is something that I'm doing compulsively, then I don't have control over it. And the best thing that I can do is to admit that I am powerless over this crazy shit that I'm doing to myself. And admit that I need help, and that the more that I try to manage it, the worse that it gets. Finding recovery from an eating disorder has allowed me to look at each meal as a miracle, because it's a meal in which I've abstained from compulsive overeating. I get to live in a body that feels good to me, that feels healthy to me, that is mine. Where before with my addiction, I felt like I lived in a body that was controlled by the compulsive eating. Life is really good today, and without my eating disorder, I wouldn't have the gratitude that I have for life and people and the good food I get to eat and the good people I have in my life and the support system I have. And I needed every bit of those experiences to teach me that I am worthwhile, and that I'm not my eating disorder, and that I'm not my mistakes, and that I'm me. Life is messy, but it's really, really good. And that's the tea. If you feel like you are struggling with an eating disorder, or if you feel like you need to talk to somebody, there's a lot of different organizations that can help. You can contact the National Eating Disorder Association. Also, if you believe in the model of addiction recovery, there's also 12-step programs even for food addiction, just like there are for drugs and alcohol, like Alcoholics Anonymous. You could also check out Overeaters Anonymous. It's another amazing organization where you can find a fellowship of recovery and people who also share the same experiences as you would as someone with an eating disorder.